welcome back to the horror show. I'm Marcia Parker.
I'm Fuego here.
And I'm Cecil Laird, and we're back here to do a timely retro review for you guys. What we're sitting down to talk about today, actually, right before we talk about another retro film, all culminating. Basically, this week we're making Blair Witch Week here on the horror show.
Yay.
So,
Hashtag Blair Witch Week.
you're watching this on Monday, so this is our review of the original Blair Witch Project, in case you didn't know, considering you clicked on it. Wednesday, you'll see our review of Book of Shadows, Blair Witch Project 2. And then this Friday, we're going to go ahead and put up our spoiler review of Blair Witch 2016, which we already have our main review up, so you can check that out if you're interested right now. But otherwise, we'll talk spoilers the day the movie is actually out.
Yeah.
So this time, we're, like I said, getting into the original, the Blair Witch Project from 1996,
Yeah.
I think?
Well, I think that's when it took place, but didn't it not actually come out till 99?
97 or 99?
90,
Maybe
I
it was
think it was
99,
99.
yeah. Something we probably should have checked on beforehand, but I'll put it up in editing. But let's talk about it, you guys. Now, we'll try and do it sort of like our normal reviews, but there might just not be that much to say because there just frankly wasn't that much to this movie.
No, there's not.
Did all of us go and see it in the theater back in the day?
I didn't.
I did. Oh, wow. Literally, I'm the only one. Wow, interesting. I don't know if I realized that. But I went and saw it at the Arizona Mills, which is a huge theater and always has been, but
it was still kind of new at that time.
It was still
too.
pretty new at that time, but it was an interesting movie-going experience because the whole crowd got into it. I do remember more than one person getting up and leaving from being sick from the motion of the cameras because, as everyone probably knows, this was the movie that popularized the modern found footage subgenre of horror.
Because technically Cannibal Holocaust
was one of the earliest ones, and they have done others, but this was the one that really shot it to the forefront of pop culture, and it
started that trend.
It started that trend, and it has remained ever since, exactly, for better or for worse. But ironically, it has gotten better within its own series.
It has.
I hope so.
So let's talk about it, you guys. The story on this one is, of course, pretty sparse. It's 3 college students go and try and investigate the legend of the Blair Witch, which is this New England legend in the Maryland woods, where there's all these stories that the townsfolk know, and we learn about it along the way.
Yeah, like centuries of stories, actually.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so this crew of 3 are making a documentary, as I guess a student film project of some kind, and they go to the town of Burkittsville, which was Blair at one point,
Right.
and they interview some townsfolk and get some stories and some talk and some chatter about the Blair Witch, some mythology and whatnot.
And some legitimately creepy insight, I would say, at least.
Well, that was one of the more interesting parts of the movie, unfortunately.
Totally. Yeah.
Was the and here, I tell you what, originally, when I watched it back then, I might have said, no, that's not the most interesting part of the movie. But in retrospect, and having developed in my tastes for film, and knowing the Blair Witch sort of progression, it's interesting to see those parts because that's the world building of the Blair Witch.
And
so it's way
lore.
more interesting to see now than it was back then.
Yeah, because
And
back
the lore
then
is fascinating.
Yeah, because back then you're just like ready to get to the actual like.
You're waiting for it.
You're waiting to get into the woods. You're waiting for the stuff to start happening. So you might have just like kind of tuned out the beginning of it. I mean, I still remembered a lot of the methods of it and the legends and the crazy people in the beginning. But I did pay attention more to what they were saying the second run, or I should say the 6th or 7th time I watched this movie. and you know, gearing up to watch, because we were watching it right before we went and saw the new one, and I was like,
Which I'm glad we did.
So cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I still loved it. It was very simple, but it was still very, very real. And that's another thing that really, I was one of those people that got pulled in because the internet was new, and they had that whole marketing online saying, this is a documentary.
It presented itself as being real.
Right, because nobody knew. I mean, found footage wasn't a new thing, but it was new for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Most people from Generation X had not seen Cannibal Holocaust.
Right.
So,
absolutely. Yeah, that that in itself was reason enough to get the buzz going about the film. And having seen it in the theater, it was just a weird experience because sort of riding the crowd's wave was interesting, but that was sort of the most interesting thing about it because as the story progresses, of course, the trio goes into the woods, proceeds to get lost very quickly, has some strange stuff happen while at night, but nothing really that terrifying.
Yeah,
it's really, they hear noises and then they wake up and they see rock formations and stick formations. And that's sort of the extent of the scares until you get to the sort of the final set piece of the film.
I would like to say, though, for me, that is terrifying because I put myself in their place, and if I woke up, I don't care if it was a supernatural thing or if it was somebody messing with you in the woods, if you wake up from a night of hearing noises and you see rock formations in front of your tent, knowing that they're meant as gravestones, and there's 3 of them, and that would freak me out. I'd be like, okay, either someone's trying to kill me or something supernatural's out to get me. I think I put myself in that situation, and it freaked me out.
It's a very divisive approach, though, for the sheer fact that it's such a slow build, and for people who are like gorehounds or, want some action right away, it's not for them, and it wasn't for me when I first watched it either. I thought it was plotting, it was boring, the acting was... It was lacking, to say the least.
Resolution.
Big time, It left so many just things unanswered, so many questions, and yet that was because I found the world building and the lore to be interesting and intriguing.
Unfortunately, there were only 2 shots that sort of stuck with me and stuck with everyone throughout the years. There's of course the snot shot, which everyone knows, which we call out in the new one because they actually do a really cool homage to that shot in the new film. The other shot is the corner shot, of course. We remember the guy in the corner, and that's supposed to be scary because you look in the corner and she gets whacked over the head, you assume, and the camera drops. Spoilers on a 20-year-old movie, yeah. If that's the extent of the scares that you're going to give me after an 80-minute build-up, then I'm going to get frustrated as hell, and I very much did. And while I appreciated the movie on sort of a different level this time around, ultimately it was still sort of a disappointing thing because there's little production design except for the house, and even that is just a rundown house. Well done, well, it was just woods and a rundown house and natural buildings in the beginning. So there's not much to speak of. The directing, there's very little to speak of because the director was not even on hand when they were filming. As I recall, the stories are the production crew would leave notes on trees for the trio to wake up and read, okay, today you guys are getting more scared, the map disappears. And that's all they would get, and they would have to act that out, and that would be the scene. And so that aspect was interesting looking back on it with that lens.
So there was a lot of improv in this movie.
There was, but unfortunately that left the camera work to the actual actors, and they're untrained in that department, or at least, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of them were actually trained camera people. But it did not show, and the camera was rough, and that's why a lot of people got sick.
That was the whole point of the movie, that they wanted to have it to feel like it was these kids out in the woods.
Well, they succeeded.
That was what they were trying to go for. They wanted to be as authentic as possible.
But my point is, there's not much directing to that. Yeah, is my point.
Yeah, no, it did feel like a student film at the end of the day. So if they were going for authenticity, they succeeded in that.
And another thing,
I liked it. I thought I still enjoyed it. I thought it pulled me into the world. It made me want more. Yes, it made me ask questions, but I thought it was a cool way. I don't know. I grew up in the woods, and the woods freaked me out, and just
the woods are scary.
And the legends of witches and curses and being messed with while you're out there. To me, I thought that was more real than some other stuff I was watching at the time. So
the thing that still frustrated me even this time through, that really got to me the last time through, 20 years ago almost, was the fact that the back half of the movie is really just a lot of the characters screaming the other characters' names in really ear-piercing ways, and it just was too much. It was just too much.
Josh!
Yeah, it was great and just blood curdling. Josh! And it's like, come on, man, shut up.
Come on, Heather.
That was still rough. That was still rough. No, actually, I was going to say, contrastingly, I actually enjoyed Heather's normal performance more this time around.
Yeah.
I thought she was she was clearly an overly ambitious film student.
And
I thought
sharp,
she conveyed that pretty well.
Yeah.
And I thought, up until she started screaming bloody murder for other people, I thought she was really good, and then she lost me. But you know, kudos, because I didn't think she was good at all last time, but I actually saw some good in her performance this time around.
I honestly don't hate the ending of the film as many people. You know, I think it's kind of satisfying, and it ended where it felt like it needed to. You know, at least for me.
Especially
it
when
wasn't that bad.
When they move forward.
I need to see something.
I don't necessarily think so. The mystery of the legend is the uncertainty of its actuality, if that makes sense. You know, the fact that you don't know what really happened.
You just agreed with me that it was a dissatisfying ending, though, like 5 minutes ago.
It wasn't. Upon further consideration, as we're sitting here discussing it, it's not the most terrible thing. I mean, it left questions unanswered, like I was just mentioning, but the uncertainty, I think, almost helped with it in some ways.
I don't know.
Cop out. I think that's a cop out.
For me, the way I look at it is as a fan, as I took it as it was, as a story that these people, we don't know what happened to them. And that's what made it even more on another, like, scary level for me. It's like, okay, we don't know what happened. We see him in the corner. We've heard the little bit, pieces and pieces of the legends. And all of a sudden she goes down and they're disappeared. Like, to me, that's like, oh, crap, what happened? Who was there? Was it the witch? Was it the guy in the woods? Who was it, you know? And to me, that made me like, I want more. And that's when we got the Book of Shadows.
Or did one of the other friends, like, you know, maybe the disappeared friend, like, did he
maybe
whack somebody over the head?
Maybe
was it Josh, or was it, I mean, because the witch does, like, almost possess people or compel them to do bad stuff, like the old man who killed the kids that we find out about. That was more of the world building that I found interesting, but the whole middle section of the film just bored the hell out of me. So,
yeah, it was rough. But, you know, it did lay the foundation for the 2 films that we're going to continue to talk about this week. So I think that pretty much covers our thoughts and feelings on the original, the Blair Witch Project. Let us know in the comments below, guys. What do you think of this original movie? Does it hold up? Have you watched it recently? Would you watch it again to sort of... we recommend watching it again going into the new movie because they do touch on a lot of the things that they touch on in the first movie.
Yes,
they do.
You can skip over Book of Shadows. Actually, you know what? I wouldn't recommend skipping over Book of Shadows after watching it today.
No.
But we'll go into more of that on Wednesday. Come back here and watch our review of Blair Witch 2. But for now, thanks very much for watching. I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, I've been Jaime Fuego.
No, Marcia Parker.
And until next time, remember,
Stay scared.